Hello and welcome to the shop. Lately, it seems that clay blanks have become all the rage. They're starting to pop up in all of the pin turning groups. So while I was at the Mid-Ohio Valley Pin Turners Gathering, I decided to try a clay blank. Now this is the first one I've ever put on my lathe. It came from Sarah Dedinsky. This is Robert Dedinsky's wife, and her company is called Ursa Quirks. So I will put the contact information in the video below. Let's get this over to the lathe and see what happens. Here's a much better look at the blank. It's really beautiful. I love the purples and the grays. Now, I did mention I have never turned a clay blank before, and I've seen them and I've often wondered, what the trick is. So I asked Sarah, I said, how do I turn this? I mean, is it skew only? What do I do? She said, no, absolutely not. No tools. These blanks, as you can see, they're already very close to the bushings. So basically we're going to take our sandpaper and we're just going to clean it up and shape it with our sandpaper. So this really is not a blank that you turn, and it's this way for all clay blanks from what I'm understanding. So I'm going to go ahead and set my lathe for about 1100 RPMs, and we're going to start with 120 grit, and we're going to work our way through 240, 340, 400, and 600, and we'll take a look at it when we're done sanding and see how the blank looks. I just finished up with my third piece of 120 grit, and you can see that paper is thoroughly clogged. These blanks are absolutely gorgeous with the intricate designs you can get, but if you don't like sanding, then they're not for you. I still have a little bit of work to do right here and right here on the bushings, and we're gonna focus in those two areas so that the blank is kind of convex in the center, and it won't be super convex because it's relatively thin to start with, but I think it'll have a nice shape. So maybe two more pieces of 120 grit, and then we'll sand back and forth to kill the scratches, and we'll just quickly run through the other grits just to make sure we're eliminating as many scratches as possible. I used two more pieces of sandpaper about the same length as I showed you, and I've got a great fit at my bushings. I got a nice shape. The blank feels great all the way across. When it's spinning, you're not feeling any ripples or anything where it was put together. I did get a little nervous a couple times because the sandpaper got really hot when sanding this blank, and I was worried that the clay may start to, I don't know, degrade or come apart. It did not. It held together well. When it got hot on this end, I would just move to this end for a little bit and let this end cool. I just kept the paper moving. At one point I thought, well, why not dip your paper in water? And then I thought, well, I know that this polymer clay is baked. It probably would be okay, but I was a little nervous about doing that. I will learn more about polymer clay blanks in the future. I do have the desire to turn a few more, or I guess sand a few more. So that's going to be happening, and I'll let you guys know what I find. I'll do a little experimenting, but what I'm going to do now is I got a tiny piece of 120. I'm just going to sand back and forth and take care of some of these scratches that I put in the blank. And I like to wipe it off with my fingers, and then always look down by the bushings, because it seems like there's always really good scratches down by the bushings, and you want to get rid of those because against your pin part, they will show up and they are horribly unsightly. Okay, that looks really good. Let me look at the other end. Yep, there's a couple on the other end. And you don't want to sand too aggressively because you can go below the bushing. But let me just spin this blank. All right, it looks, whoops, right there. I don't know if you can see it. You probably can't see it in the camera because I don't know if the lighting is good enough to show it. But there are some little tiny scratches there. I think I've gotten rid of all of the scratches. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to run through the other grits, and I don't have to do any shaping. I did all the shaping with the 120. We're just going to basically run through the grits to eliminate scratches. I will come back and show you this blank when I am done sanding with 600 grit paper. Just finished sanding to 600. Super happy with how this blank turned out. I'm going to go ahead now and micro mesh it. And I am going to use the micro mesh wet. I do feel like since this was baked that it probably will not be super absorbent and it probably will not have an issue. After I run the first pad, I'll stop the lathe and feel the blank and we'll see just how it feels. I think I'll take you along on my journey. This is the first pad and I'm just basically going to use it like I would any normal pin that I turned. I really don't think it's going to cause a problem. I think the water may actually help with the surface of the blank. But we'll find out here in a minute. I'm not getting the same type of a slurry that I get off of a regular blank. Let's take a look at it. It doesn't seem to be affecting it. It feels just as solid as it did before I started turning. So I think we're going to be okay. I'm going to go ahead and shut the camera off. We're going to finish out with our micro mesh pads and we'll come back and take a look at it. Just finished up with the micro mesh. The blank looks incredible. I'm going to go ahead now and put a little bit of my Renaissance wax on there. And we're going to turn that in. This polymer clay blank is absolutely beautiful. It's turning out incredible. These are fun to work with. If you want to get into making pins, but you're nervous about the tools, about sharpening them, or about working with them, you know, you just intimidated, this might be a great place for you to start because you're using sandpaper. Now, I might recommend starting with an 80 grit and being very ginger with it. Don't get aggressive, but go in and clean up your ends and then come back with the 120 and work through the rest of your papers. I think you would clean this up a little quicker because, boy, it sure can clog sandpaper. I also noticed that with the micro mesh, it just didn't seem to have the same effect on the clay blank as it does on a acrylic or a wood blank with a CA finish, but it still did a nice job. I'm going to get this off of here. We're going to get it on another mandrel. I'll get my buffing wheels on the lathe and we'll go ahead and buff this blank up and just watch it pop. I think you're going to be really amazed at how it looks. If you hate sanding, then polymer clay blanks are not for you, but if you don't mind a little bit of sanding, you have so many options with these blanks. I've seen gorgeous flowers. I've seen some of the like the Cinco de Mayo with the dead sort of images on them. I've seen all kinds of just absolutely incredible pins made with polymer clay. And one day I wouldn't mind learning how to make them myself. They're absolutely beautiful, but there really is no turning involved. It is all about sanding, and unfortunately, I'm not a huge fan of sanding. I would really prefer to turn as close as possible and do the least amount of sanding as possible. But if you're okay with a little sanding, you can get an incredibly intricate, beautiful, beautiful blank. This thing is just awesome. Take a look at that blank. Let me shut this lathe off. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. Let's go press it into a kit. I'm ready to press my blank into a kit. I'm going to start off by using my deburring tool, and I'm going to deburr the inside of the blank. And you can see what that does. See how it kind of gives it just a little bit of a chamfer there? There really is no good side or bad side on this blank. It's beautiful all the way around. So it doesn't really matter where we start the cap. What I'm going to try to do is get it started by hand a little bit because there we go. Keeping the blank straight is the most difficult part. We've got her now. I'm going to go ahead and complete the press. All right. Did you hear that nice little pop when I pulled the bushing out? The thing was airtight. Look at that. I've got a great fit up here. It's going to be a gorgeous pin. The rest of this pin is super simple to assemble. Spring on the refill, refill in the nib, transmission connected to the nib. Nice crank to tighten her down. Work that grease a little bit and put it together. I want you to take a look at that. It actually is a gorgeous pin. I really am happy with it. I really hope you enjoyed the process I went through to create this gorgeous pin. I'm super happy with it. If you enjoy the turning process, then polymer clay is not really for you. But if you don't mind a little sanding, you can make some gorgeous pins. And the whole time I was making this, I'm thinking to myself, I get a lot of people who contact me and they want to make pins, but they're intimidated. Polymer clay may be the way to go, guys. Basically, you get yourself a great assortment of sandpaper, some polishing pads, and you've got it. You could even go as far as to make your own blanks. So from start to finish, you could create the blank and then sand and create the pin and make some gorgeous pins without ever having to touch or sharpen a tool. I'd really like to thank you for joining me in the shop tonight. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon and have a great evening.